Hello, everyone. Welcome to Coffee College. This is Omid G, the coffee professor. We're going to talk today about wet-hulled coffee. Wet-hulled coffee only comes from Indonesia. I've seen it once from, I think, Tanzania, but it was just a farmer screwing around with a very small micro lot. It's an Indonesian thing. Now, what is wet-hulled coffee, and then what flavor profile does it bring? First, how about if I show it to you? So what I have here is a wet-hulled coffee from Indonesia. This is from Bali. And if you can see, the color is different than the normally sort of bright yellow, light green beans that you see unroasted from other countries. It's darker, and it's a more deep green sort of color. In fact, this one's called Bali Blue. It's they can take on a blue hue. So what does it taste like? Maybe we start there. What's the experience with wet-hulled, and then we can work our way backwards. And you'll pardon the monkey I have here. She adds energy to the episode here. When you drink wet-hulled coffee, it's for the people who like their coffee to be earthy, peaty, definitely not vibrant. Definitely not vibrant, definitely not acidic. It's very low acid. It's for those people who really want their coffee to taste like coffee, traditional coffee, and usually they like it dark roast. And in fact, the wet-hulled coffees, they have a higher moisture level, and they're typically high elevation. They can take to dark roast really well, almost better than any other coffee on the planet. So if you like super dark roast coffee, you're best off getting it from Indonesia because it can handle it. You can't just take any coffee dark roast. So it's going to be earthy, peaty, very low acid. If you're drinking it in espresso, it's going to provide tremendous crema. And a lot of people, or by people I mean roasters, a lot of roasters like to blend in Indonesian beans with other beans, and they sometimes even blend them with vibrant beans, which I find a little bit unusual, because you create, as the saying goes, odd bedfellows. If you mix it with an African bean, then you're really taking something vibrant and acidic and maybe fruit or floral flavored, and then mixing it with something that has a flavor profile closer to mud. It's just strange bedfellows. But it still can taste good as a blend too. Now, the interesting thing is there's varying levels of quality with the wet-hulled, and I have to be careful with my use of the word quality in this case. Normally, beans from other countries, we look for them to be well sorted. That means we're looking at the screen size being the size of the beans. And so usually they're screened out, size 14, and then, which I would never buy, and then maybe size 15 and 16, which, well, I don't want to go too far off topic, but that's a little bit smaller. And then there's size 17 and 18, which is the larger beans. And usually, in most cases, that's what I try and buy. Indonesian beans are the only ones that can taste good mixing up the screen size. So if I buy beans and it's got all sorts of different size beans in there, then I know, don't buy from this broker again, because somebody's not doing quality control somewhere, probably at the farmer's level. They're not doing quality control. They're just mixing everything together, and it's going to create a taste that it just won't taste right, because the smaller screen size tastes very different than the larger screen size. With Indonesian beans, the wet-hulled ones, which is like 99% of their production, mixing in varying screen size and also mixing in defects, and I'll explain what defects are in a second, adds character to the bean, and it adds flavor, and it adds a desirable characteristic. And you're going to see this most with Sumatran beans, Sumatra Mandeling. So if you really like that earthy flavor, if you really like that peaty type flavor, then go with Sumatran. Because they incorporate the defects. They incorporate the different screen sizes, and then the defects in terms of the beans themselves. So the beans might have cracks, they have chips, they'll even have bug bites. And don't let that gross you out. That's common with coffee. You get beans, you can tell a bug took a bite out of it, and then never seen one with 2 bites. So I think they stopped there, and and I've got some background effects going on here. But anyways, these defects add character to the coffee, to the people who like earthy and peaty beans. However, you get Indonesian wet hulled that are very highly sorted also. The ones I showed you, and I'll show you again, you can see that they're all pretty much the same size. You're not seeing varying sizes of beans, and you're also not seeing chips or pieces missing or bug bites with a big chunk taken out. They look really nice. These are cleanly sorted. So if you get, there's different regions of Indonesia. If you get Sulawesi, or if you get from Bali, you're going to get very cleanly sorted beans. If you get from Sumatra, forget about it. It's going to be everything mixed in, and it's done intentionally, not because of rogue behavior. It's going to be done intentionally because it adds character to the bean. It adds flavor to the cup. And trust me, there's people who love that. Now, how do they arrive at this? How do they create this? How do they process these coffee beans to be wet hulled? So the first thing you should know is Indonesia grows at high elevation. It grows at high elevation on volcanic soil. So what you would normally get is a very acidic process, but the wet hulled process that they've invented essentially completely takes the acid away. And I'll explain to you how they do it. So it starts out, and they call it Giling Basah, by the way, but the rest of the world calls it wet hulled. That's what I'll call it. Now, it starts like a wash process. So they take the beans, they pick them, they mechanically depulp them, and then they put them in the tanks to get the mucilage off. Then they put them out to dry. All of that is the same as a wash process bean. But a wash process bean is going to harness all of that acidity and all that vibrancy that comes with that bean. So what's different? The main thing that's different is they pull the beans and take them to market before they're done drying. That's really the main thing they're doing different. And you would think, well, what's the big deal? The big deal is it creates a dramatically different product. I mean, dramatically. And you might ask, why do they do this? And the reason is funny, and the reason is going to surprise you. The reason is not to create this flavor profile. The reason is because it's a very poor country, and they're concerned about time to money. The sooner you go and take these beans out of the sun and go sell them, if you can sell them sooner, your time to money is faster. And so they sell them with a higher moisture level. And it dries in a very different way than what you have with the traditional wash coffee or any other processed coffee, which they don't allow. They take it to a drier level, 1 or 2% or more drier than what you get with wet hulled. And that's a huge amount. For that reason, wet hulled beans can really take the heat also if you want to give it to them. I tend not to give them, well, let me go not too far. By taking it to market faster, it creates these earthy flavors, these peaty flavors. It reduces the acidity by not allowing them to dry fully. And then what it also does is it makes the beans look different. They get that greenish blue color to them, that greenish blue hue. So that's what happens in the wet hulling process. And as far as roasting them, when you're roasting, and again, I don't want to go too far off schedule here because I'd like to have a different video on how to roast for acidity versus how to roast for body. And you really have to make a choice when you're roasting, which one you're trying to do, or if you're trying to balance between the two, but you can't have both. It's hard. Um, with these beans, I like to hit them with not a lot of heat, and I like to get a very protracted roast, and that helps it develop body, because the people who drink these like the body. They like the earthiness, the peatiness, and the non-Sumatrans, wet hulled out of Indonesia, that are very cleanly sorted, can have a cleaner flavor that's not quite as earthy, that's not quite as peaty. So it just tastes like a very high quality Sumatran. But you just have to remember, when I say quality, that quality is in the eye of the beholder when it comes to Indonesian beans. Whereas with beans from pretty much every other region of the world, the experts and even the non-experts agree on what quality means. But with Indonesian beans, you're talking about different definitions. Some people want the clean, wet hulled flavor, sort of a clean, earthy flavor that has less of that, less deep, earthy, peaty flavor, and some people like more. So once again, you want to go to the Sumatran. Then, if you really like the earthy, peaty flavor, I got something else for you. And that, maybe I can have this monkey get it. If you go to the box that says aged Sumatran and get me one of those bags, it's the third box. There's a process called aging, and I've only seen it done with Sumatran beans. And is that them? Yes. Okay, good job. So this one's a 3-year age Sumatran. It's not going to be quite as dark as the 5 years that I have over there too. So what they do is the beans are sent. It's only done with Sumatran, and it's only done with Indonesian beans. And aged is different than old coffee. They're very different. Old coffee tastes baggy. It tastes like grass. It's not good. Aged coffee means that it's in a climate-controlled warehouse, and it's regularly turned, and things are done. So she wants me to show this to you, so I will. Perhaps it's hard to tell that this is a bit darker. If I was to show you the 5-year aged, it looks like tobacco, and it's really dark, and they have very low moisture levels by that point. But for the people who like that, it's something else. In fact, I'm drinking it now. You typically only see it during the fall or the winter from like Starbucks and Pete's and things like that. It'll put hair on your chest. It's pretty robust. So that's the deal with Indonesian wet hulled process. Now you know what it is, how they make it, and what flavor characteristics it has, and also what flavor characteristics it doesn't have, and the various definitions of quality. So if earthy, peaty, low acid, and if the thought of your coffee having fruit or floral or nutty, flavors or things like that is just completely abhorrent to you, then maybe Indonesian coffee is your thing. And by the way, I've heard Sulawesi, which is a very clean, very highly sorted, wet hulled coffee. I've heard it called the king of coffee. It's very creamy. It's velvety, actually. Almost has a cardamom flavor. It's pretty cool. So I like making some things with that. I'm not crazy about wet hulled, but I like Sulawesi. So anyway, I hope this was educational for you. I hope this was interesting for you. My name's Omid G, the coffee professor. If you liked what you heard, please like, share, comment, and then what else?
And if you like this, subscribe and click the subscribe button.
There we go. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode of Coffee
College.
There we go.